All right. Welcome to the Nova University podcast, Doug. And would you like to introduce yourself to the people that are on the panel and the people that are listening into this as of now?
Hey, good morning or good afternoon. Thanks for having me on the podcast. My name is Doug Spence. I live in San Diego, California. Married. I have a wife named Kate, and we have an 8-month-old son. And I've been stationed in San Diego, California for the last 4 years now. I'm active duty Navy. I've been in for almost 14 years. Lived Florida, lived in Japan, lived in California a couple different times. And been in since 2009 and started investing in real estate in 2016. And over the last 3 to 4 years, I've really started ramping up my real estate. I've gotten addicted to it. And so
Nice.
surrounded myself with fellow real estate addicts, and that has kind of, they have enabled me to grow my portfolio. And then along the way, I really enjoy helping out other military folks learn about real estate and grow their portfolio. So that's kind of a passion of mine. So I try to, pass that along so
Nice.
as I learn.
And in the beginning, right, when you were growing up, did you automatically want to join the military? Like, was that your main thing? Like,
No, no. I thought of the military as something that I would do if I finished college and like didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I finished college in 2007, very late 2007, and didn't know what I wanted to do. So I started the process of doing the military stuff. So, and
nice.
honestly, it's been awesome. I've done way more than I ever thought I would. So it's been a good experience.
Was college like a thing that you were raised to do, or like, what's your opinion on college overall?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. I think, it's definitely not for everyone. I think college, I think people have to assess if it's worth if they're going to have to take on debt to pay for college. You really have to take a hard look at if it's going to be worth it, because I think a lot of people take on student loan debt to pay for college without fully understanding the long-term impacts of that debt. And which, I mean, the military is a great way to, you finish high school, join the military, serve for 4 years, and then you get a free, you get the GI Bill. So you can't go to any school for free on the GI Bill, but you can do a lot of, you can get a good education for little to no money. So it's a good way to get accelerated in your career, your adult career, without going into massive amounts of debt. So.
Yeah, and of course, while you're in the military, you can also use tuition assistance, TA and CA,
Right.
to basically do your schooling while you're in. If you have a good job that allows you to do that, I know some MOS. Do you call it in the Navy MOS, or what is it called?
So for enlisted, it's rates, and then for officers, it's your designator or designation. So
Okay, and for those like either if you're like a cook, man, your whole schedule is like fucked, right? But if you're like someone like me with an MOS of like IT and all that, I'm kind of like we're kind of chilling, so I kind of use that time to finish my college. I'm being honest, right? It really is what job you go into with all this stuff, and uh, at the end of the day, if we're going to the field, we all have different roles. But being a cook, I tell them like, hey, you guys are struggling here, but at the end of the day, we chose what to do. And
yeah,
if you do have the time again, use tuition assistance. And after 4 years, you could probably come out with the bachelor's degree and with your GI Bill still intact. So I see
yeah.
that a lot as well. And why did you choose the Navy out of like all four branches, or five now, I guess, if you think about it?
Um, I just kind of like the overall. I like the mission of the Navy. I liked how. I like the idea of port calls. I liked how the duty stations in the Navy are all coastal, so you don't have locations like middle of nowhere like you have specifically Army and the Air Force. We have a lot of pretty awesome duty stations around the world. And I don't know, my grandfather was in the Navy, so it just kind of felt right, and they accepted me, so that made it easy. So yeah.
And before I go forward, like what did you go for college for? What degree did you get out of it?
Political science.
Political science. Do you use political science now, or is it like kind of like whatever.
Abs- Does anyone use political science?
I don't know. I don't even know what you use political science for. Like,
No, it was just I did political science because it was just something that interested me. In hindsight, I probably should have done business or something like that, but I was a very different person at 18 when I had to pick a major. So I went with political science at the time. So
nice. And did you go straight to community college, or were you like, hey, I got to get this like, uh, because I know for me when I was in high school or whatever, it was like status, right? Like, oh, if you can get this, like, if you can go to a private school, you're kind of like top tier, right? Oh, I got accepted to this college, right? But now that I look back, all these guys are like, are in major debt, or like they don't even know what they're doing, right? They're changing their majors midway,
yeah.
and like, what was your aspect like? Was it like going through community college, or was it actually like, hey, try to go for the best school at that point?
I only applied to one school, to be honest. I probably should have applied to multiple ones, but I'm fortunate that my parents, my family, they were like, well, they didn't want me to go to school and have to have student debt, so they were able to pay for my school. So I graduated from college debt free, thanks to my parents, to be
Yeah,
frank, and family. So, but I went to Baylor University, which is in Waco, Texas.
nice. Okay.
So,
And was your family always like supportive of like I guess like your financials, your were they like in a
yeah,
teaching moment? Because I know a lot of people that grow up with like no family, no nothing, and they're like, hey, I didn't know this stuff. Did you have like
yeah,
that kind of like enrollment in your family?
yeah. I think I owe a lot of my personal finance successes to my family. We definitely had a frugal mindset, middle class family. Both parents worked, um, and they were both on the frugal side. And they both taught me about money and the value of saving and the value of not spending what you don't have. And I had always, it wasn't even a question whether I was going to go to college or not. I always knew from an early age that I was going to go to college. And um, they definitely taught me about money. They taught me, don't, like credit cards. Like I understood that very early on. And I'm also thankful I was interested in personal finance from an early age. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad probably within a few years after when it came out. So I
Who
just,
did someone tell you to do that, or was your like, or did you just pick it up?
no, I think it was a buddy of mine from high school that I can't remember honestly, but I remember reading it like a while ago. But yeah, and we were interested in, like, I was reading personal finance books in like high school, and I just liked it. So I think that combined with my parents educating me on, not necessarily I didn't learn anything about like real estate from my parents, but it was more like just the core foundations of personal finance, like you know, uh, don't spend more than you earn and save it and put it into assets and, credit card debt and all, those kind of like common pitfalls that a lot of people fall into and, in their 20s and 30s. And it takes a while to dig out of. I was able to avoid those because of education from my parents. So,
Hey, that's good. That's good. Like that you're not only did your parents help you, but you were actually like reading books and doing all this stuff while you were in high school. Not a lot of guys they can say they actually read books for fun or whatever. I know me when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was like 16, I went to my parents like, hey, this is a liability, this is an asset, and they were like, yeah, fuck off. I was like, okay, cool. I guess like that. I mean, and I was like, wait, so like because my parents they were they weren't the frugal ones, or they try to spend what they get, they try to live paycheck to paycheck. And I was like, why are we doing this, right? And they see, like, I think what my father told me, it was like, you're a walking mirror, right? That I'm like, what does that even mean? He's like, well, you're saying all this stuff about like how to get rich, how to be wealthy, how to stay frugal. Nobody wants to hear that, right? Because they reflected on you. Like if you're being a bodybuilder and you have a six pack, people are going to be like jealous. They're like, well, I want to see what I can do to make fun of you. Like, oh, you don't want to eat chicken, you don't want to eat this steak because you're on a diet. Like they'll try to poke fun of you for that. I'm like, oh, I never
mm,
thought of me being a walking mirror to my own family members, but I do see it. And the fact that you had family members that are very supportive of what you did, it's great, right? Like,
yeah.
and yeah, because not a lot of people also read in high school too, which is like the most. I got bullied for reading, so I think that's like two different worlds right there. So I was like, oh, I guess reading was not a cool thing, and I'll read in silent. So from you moving to like to go to, it's kind of, the running joke, right? Like where people that don't join the military, they have both parents. And it's like surprising that you joined the military with both parents still intact. So that's
Well,
like,
they would. So my parents also my parents divorced when I was 9 or 10, but
okay.
they weren't together. But I was still learning from both of them, So,
Yeah.
but
And did you say you have a daughter or a son?
son,
Okay. So let's say your son turned 18, right? He's like, Dad, should I join the military or should I go college? Or do you think I should go to the military as enlisted or should I go as an officer?
I think it depends on the individual. It depends on the individual, depends on their goals. I think it depends on, and I mean, part of the question is like, do you think you want to do 20 years or not? But he can't know that at 18 years old,
Yeah.
That's a tough question. I think I'd have to ask more questions to the individual. Hopefully by the time my son is 18, I'll know him pretty well and know whether it's, I can at least, based on my opinion, I think it's a good idea or not. And enlisted versus officer, because there's pros and cons to each. Yeah, I think it's definitely, it depends kind of question. But I think if someone knows for sure that they want to do 20, I think it would be, do you want to go to college or not? At 18,
Mhm.
if the individual is ready to go to college, wants to go to college, then I think going to college and doing the ROTC program, so your college is paid for, and you're still getting the full college experience. Now service academies are great, but I think you kind of miss out on a lot of the college experience by going to a service academy. And then you can graduate, your college is paid for, and then now you're in the military as an officer. Or if you're like, no, I don't think college is for me, I want to start working, but I want to be in the military, then I would go in as enlisted, do a few years, and then I'd try to do we have in the Navy called Seaman to Admiral. So there are programs where you can go from enlisted to officer. Well, they will pay for you to go to a 4-year undergraduate degree full time while getting paid as, an E5 or whatever you are, and then go officer, and all that time counts towards your 20. So that's a great way to do it if you want to do a career. So I think it just depends on the individual. What, are they ready for college? Do they want to go to college? And then what order they want to do those things.
Yeah. In the
So
army,
it's really it's an it depends kind of question.
yeah, I agree. In the army, that's like the green and gold program as well. And I really want to know what made you re-enlist the second time. And for those that don't know what re-enlisting is for the non-military people, that's like basically when you first sign up for the military, you sign a contract, and once that contract is over, you got to sign. If you want to go back into it, you got to sign another contract. So for you, Doug, what made you want to re-enlist again for the second time? Because
So I'm an officer, so I commissioned back in 2009.
okay,
But the reason I have stayed in past my initial service
mhm,
obligation is I just get a lot of fulfillment out of being in the military. I like it a lot. I like the people that I work with. I like being part of something bigger than myself, and I like having a sense of purpose. I think it's very easy for people to focus on the negatives and the downsides of being in the military and say, screw this, I'm getting out, the grass is greener. And then they get out, and then now they're selling insurance or whatever. And they're like, their identity was what they did in the military. And now their identity is something that maybe kind of sucks compared to what they were doing before. And they miss that. They maybe don't have that sense of purpose, sense of fulfillment. So, I think it's important that no matter what you're doing, whether it's in the military or not, that you have a strong sense of purpose. And people that are in the military, make sure you're developing that sense of purpose. Start developing that identity of yourself outside the military before you get out, because that's how we see a lot of suicides and a lot of depression is people's identity is wrapped up in what they're doing in the military. And then when you take that away, you take away some of that identity. And so I don't know, we're kind of getting into a different topic
no, you're
here,
good.
but
I like it.
I think people have to be really intentional with their transition out of the military for their own sake, not just financially, but for their mental and emotional well-being as well.
Mm-hmm. And from your opinion, as being an officer that helps soldiers transition out, What is the best way for a soldier to transition out and like be better in the civilian world or get accustomed to the civilian world?
Um, I think having a plan, like I hate when sailors are getting out and you're talking to them a few months before they're doing the transition classes and all that kind of stuff, and you're like, what are what are you going to do? And they're like, oh, I'm not sure yet. Like, and you're like, man, like you don't know what you're doing. Like you're going to be a civilian in a few years and you've got like a kid or something and you don't know what you're doing yet. Like that's stress. Like I get stressed hearing that from them. So I think it's just being intentional, having a plan. um just have some idea of what you want to do, and you don't need to step right into your career that you're going to have next, like, but at least have a plan. Like, hey, I'm going to work, I'm going to move back home, I'm going to get my old job back at the whatever factory back home, or I'm going to work for a family member while I get my feet under me, and then I'm going to start, and then I'm going to go, then I'm going to do the GI Bill, and I'm going to get paid, E5 BAH, wherever it is, while I'm doing my GI Bill or whatever. I think people just need to have a plan, whatever that is. There's no like wrong answer for what people want to do, but have a plan. And there's a lot of transition programs within each branch that will help you figure that out. And there's a lot of private companies that will help people transition as well. They help you set up resumes, and they help place you into companies that like veterans and like that skill set. And I think a lot of military folks also undervalue the skill set that they have learned while they've been in the military.
Yeah.
And it's not always an easy transition, taking that skill set and transferring it to something outside, but it is, there are a lot of skills that transfer, but it takes you just have to be intentional about it. You have to plan. You can't start figuring out 2 or 3 months out. Like then you're late, you're behind at that point. So it's just, like anything else in life, like planning and being intentional. So,
No, you're
but
100% right. And for you, going through the military, and you're in the Navy, so you travel a lot. Do you see a benefit for those like traveling out to those countries, whether it's military or non-military members? Uh, because have you been to like many different types of countries out there?
yeah, I actually lived in Japan for 3 years. I was stationed out there and traveled to I think while I was stationed out there, I went to like 14 different countries or something like that. So yeah, I think there's a lot of value in not just traveling to other countries, but living in other countries. Um, you can see like just the way we do things in America is only one way of doing things. There's a lot of other ways of doing things, just in all kinds of. I mean, there's so many examples. I lived in Japan, and when you're at a four-way intersection at night, um, the people across from you, the intersection, they have their lights on. The person at the front across from you, the intersection, will turn their lights off until the light turns green for them, because they you're not, just to not blind the person across the intersection. It's just little things like that where it's like you've never see anyone do that in America, because
Yeah.
people don't really give a shit about other people, right? So I think little things like that, you're like, wow, that's an interesting way of doing things. Like we should do that, or just little things like that. But I think you pick up a lot, a lot of things from other countries, and you learn a lot. And being able to see America from that outside lens from other countries as well kind of gives you some perspective. I think there's a lot of value in living in another country. You can only learn so much going somewhere for 5-7 days, right? But if you're
Yeah.
living somewhere for months and really getting into the culture and learning the culture, I think there's a lot of value that can be gained from that. So,
Nice. And if there was a country that you would like retire and stay at, what would it be other than the US?
uh, I like Canada, but I think New Zealand was pretty awesome.
New Zealand? Okay.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
And what transitioned you to like actually fully financing and like real estate and all that?
Um, you're talking real estate transition?
Yeah, like what transitioned you, like what got you the idea of like, yeah, I gotta start doing real estate.
I started listening to Bigger Pockets back in probably 2015, 2016. I had always had the mindset of, the personal finance foundations had always been there, like I talked about. Um, and so I understood the value of, saving money, putting it into assets, something that cash flows, et cetera. But I think Bigger Pockets was kind of what opened my eyes to like me, average person can do it. You don't have to be rich Donald Trump real estate mogul to do real estate. So I learned a lot from the Bigger Pockets podcast and Bigger Pockets books, and then just ended up taking action in 2018 to buy my first dedicated investment property.
Nice. And what was that property? What was your first property like?
I still own it. It's a single family home in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I had listened to a podcast. It was Bigger Pockets Money, I believe. And the guest was Stu Grazier, someone who I stay in touch with to this day. And he had just started a turnkey real estate company where they basically flip homes, and instead of selling the home, well, they sell the home to investors. They sell already rented out homes to investors. So I bought one from them back in December of 2018, and just a C-class single family home, cash flowing rental in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And then they had another one available a few months later, bought a second one then. And then by that time, they had gotten so popular that the waiting list was like a year and a half long. So I didn't get my third one from them until December of 2020 or so. So it was like about a year and a half wait list for that third one. But by that time, I had started doing my own BRRRRs out of state. And so that was the last turnkey for me, because the capital, I can get a better return on my capital by doing BRRRRs than doing turnkey. But doing the turnkey out of state is what got me into dedicated real estate investing. But that wasn't my first property, but that was the first one that was like a dedicated, like out of state. It never was a primary residence. My first one was a primary residence I lived in for 2 years and then rented out. But then that first turnkey one in Milwaukee was my first dedicated investment property.
Nice. And for those that don't understand what a turnkey is, could you quickly define what it is?
Yeah, turnkey is just in this context, turnkey is when a company sells a newly renovated home. They renovate a home, put a tenant into it, and then sell that home to an investor. So the investor is buying a investment property that is cash flowing from day one.
Pretty much. And how did you finance all? Did you say you bought 3 of them?
Mm-hmm.
So how did you finance all 3? Did you put 20% down on each one of them?
Yep. Just conventional mortgages, 20 or 25% down, depending on each individual one. They were about $100K each, give or take a little bit. And just, I've always had a high savings rate, and I was able to buy them just 20, 25% down. And I got a 5.25% interest rate on those, on the first 2. And the last one was like 4.75, I think.
Nice.
So, yeah.
And how many properties are you at right now?
Well, so 1 in Pensacola, 3 in Milwaukee. We've got a duplex in Oklahoma City and a single family home in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then we're house hacking here in San Diego. So it's a single family home with the bottom floor that we rent out to a tenant here. We bought that on our VA loan, actually my wife's VA loan. And then I'm also a passive investor in a few syndications. So a mobile home park syndication, 2 apartment complex syndications, and then 1 RV fund syndication, which is actually one that I'm a co-GP on. So we're buying up RV parks along the Sun Belt. So, and I'm on the co-GP for that one as both acquisitions and capital raiser.
Nice. Not only are you passively investing, but you're all scattered all over the place with your real estate investments. That kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah.
That freaks me out a little bit because that's just me, right? Me personally. But there is like long distance real estate. If you just had the right team, right people in place for all that stuff. Have you tried niching in other stuff like Airbnbs or you're doing house hacking? So is there any other niches that you try to dabble into?
I've done Airbnb a bit. My Pensacola house, I Airbnb'd it for a summer, but that was back in 2018. And there weren't really, back in 2018, there weren't really good options for like short-term rental management companies. And I didn't trust anyone to do it as well as I had been doing it because I got Superhost pretty quickly. on that one doing it myself. And so I just rented it to long-term tenants. So that was my last dabble in short-term rentals, but I'm more of a long-term rental BRRRR strategy and syndication kind of guy.
Okay, nice. And for those that are trying to get into the whole real estate thing, whether they're young people or they're military, what would you recommend for them to like actually first step into the whole real estate game?
Um, First thing is I would sit down. If it's just you, I would figure out what your vision is. Now, if you're married, you have a spouse, you got to include your spouse in that vision. I would figure out where you want to be in 10 years, 15 years. Be very clear on what that is, what your day looks like, what you're doing, what you're eating, where you're living, what are you doing from the time you wake up to go to sleep, all that kind of stuff. And once you're very clear on that, then I would start educating about real estate, podcasts, books, YouTube channel, talking to people, etc. And then I would join a mastermind group and kind of walk as you're learning all about real estate and getting surrounded by people that are doing real estate. I think you'll learn about different strategies and you'll find a strategy that will get you to that destination. Because you have to be really clear about where you're going, because how can you decide on a strategy? Think of the strategy as like the road to get to a destination. How can you decide on a strategy to get to that destination if you don't even know where you're trying to go? So just because wholesaling virtually worked for someone and aligns with their goals doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Just because you can make money doing something doesn't mean it's the right decision for you. Doesn't mean it aligns with your goals and values in the long term. So I think people need to be really clear about where they're trying to go and then back the strategy up to fit that long-term goal.
Nice. And you said about joining a mastermind as well. What is the major benefit of joining a mastermind? Because I could be like that person, be like, oh, what do I got to learn from these people? They're in the same boat as I am. What's the point?
I think it's people that can hold you accountable for your goals, people that understand what you're trying to do. And it's people that are doing what you are trying to do or have already done what you're trying to do. So masterminds are full of people that are, if you're in the right one, people that are more advanced than you and people that are willing to help you out. And you can learn from their mistakes. You can get connected to their contacts. You can accelerate your progress by being surrounded with like-minded people. And, the kind of space we're in where it's people, doing real estate and, I think a lot of people, their friends and family and people they work with are kind of like, what, you're buying real estate? Like, a lot of people think you're crazy, right?
Yeah.
But if you're only surrounded by people that think you're crazy, then you're gonna be like, man, I'm crazy. Like, what am I doing? I should just be, looking at TikTok and watching Dance with the Stars every night instead of trying to pursue my long-term goals. But if you're in a mastermind group, now you're surrounded by other crazy people that are doing the same thing. And they'll keep you motivated. They'll keep you focused on your goals. They'll say, hey, you said you were gonna put an offer on, 3 properties this week. Like, did you do it? Okay. So I think there's a lot of value in that, both the networking, but also the accountability. It's really important as well. So
And what makes a good mastermind? Like, there's so many masterminds out there. How do you know if this one is the right one?
I would talk to people that are already in it and see, how long have you been in it? What value have you gained from it? Has it been worth the price? How involved are you? And try to just, learn from the folks that are already in it. There are a lot of masterminds out there. And I think there's a lot of people that are only in masterminds to take from other people, which I don't like. So if you're joining a mastermind group only to take information from other people, I think you should rethink your mindset. I think people should also have the mindset of, giving first, trying to provide value to others first. Because even if you're a beginner, you probably know more than you think you do, and you may be able to help someone else that's a little further. Maybe they're only 6 months behind you on their journey, but you can help them out. So being proactive about helping others out and not just taking from others will take you a lot further than being the taker. So.
Yeah. And I have like my rules for like whenever I meet someone new or whenever I'm like in a different like group or something, especially when you say like, don't be the one that is always taking, always find something. Everybody has something. Everybody has a certain thing that they have that they can give, right? Me, I could be like, I'm a young guy, but I still have some like facts or I can do some like, tech stuff, right? I can provide that, or I can provide some certain knowledge that other people don't know about. And whenever I have a problem, right, I don't indirectly tell them like, "Hey, yeah, this is my problem. I need you to help me," right? I describe my problem like, "Hey, so what would you do in this situation, right? Because I'm having a problem with XYZ. Do you think this would be a good route?" They're like, "No, no, 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 no. This is how you do it. That's how you get them." But if it's like, "Hey, I have this problem. You need to fix it. Come help me." That's when they're
Yeah.
like, "Okay, I don't want to give anything to you." And my whole like my whole thing about giving now is like, whenever you give something to someone, don't expect anything in return. It's like if your best friend has like is selling I say water bottles, right? Does that mean does that mean you're going to get a cheaper price for it? Does that mean you're going to get a discount because you're their best friend? No. What that means is that you're going to buy that product pipe at pipe for more than what it's worth, because you're like, you know what, you're my best friend,
Yeah.
and I like what you're doing, and I'm gonna support your business by paying it more instead of saying, yeah, you should give me a discount because I'm your best friend. You see how that kind of
Yeah.
alters, and you're like more of a giver than a taker.
Yeah, because they want to support you. Hey, if your buddy writes a book, you don't want to say, "Hey, can I get a free copy of the book?" Like, no,
Yeah.
buy the book and support them.
Exactly. That's like uh that helps both places. And it what you think like $10, $20, like it kind of shows where you are with that relationship. Like you're trying to save $20 when you could be helping them, showing them, okay, I'm here for you. And for you, example, Doug, how did you know, like, when you first got into that mastermind, was it like, okay, let me see what I can give back first, or how did you interact? What was it like? Like, oh, the first 3 weeks is kind of slow. Then after that, it's like you're learning, you're doing stuff. What is a typical mastermind like?
That was my first mastermind group, the War Room. So I didn't really know what to expect, but I knew enough, and I think I was mature enough to know like not to be a taker. There were people in the squad that I was put into that were both ahead of me in the journey, and people that were more beginner than me. So I was just offering help, where I could, and I am naturally a connector. I'm a networker and a connector, and I like to connect people to people that I know, to provide value to everyone. So I do that instinctively almost. So in that sense, it's kind of natural for me.
Nice. And for the person that's like starting an entrepreneurship, what piece of advice would you want to give them?
People getting started in entrepreneurship. I think it's important to consider, do you want what is the why? Why? Why are you starting a business? Why not buy a business? Um, you know, I think it's too common. It's the route of like, I have to start a business, but depending on the business, you may be able to buy a business that is already established, that already has cash flow, already has customers, already has inventory, et cetera. So if you're just talking entrepreneurship, I think two books, Traction by Gino Wickman is a great, that's my number one all-time business book. And then number two, check out the book called Buy Then Build by Walker Deibel.
Mhm.
That book talks about the value of, rather than starting a business, buy an already existing business. So it's just an interesting concept. You can buy businesses for no to low money down, and there's a lot of baby boomers out there, a lot of older folks out there with businesses that they don't want anymore, their kids don't want, um, that are already making money, that they may not even know they can sell the business. And so yeah.
With that, what I talked to like a storage unit person, right? And they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, all these like storage units are owned by like old people, and they're like they either are not with the times of like, hey, security and all that stuff, and they're like, they just want to sell it off, or
Yeah.
they just want to hold on to it because they're making good money, but they could be making way more money, but they just don't know about that. So
Right.
there's
Well, it's
people,
also it's a great opportunity for seller financing too. Is you
yeah,
can just say, hey, I'll take this off your plate. Let me give you, a monthly payment amount, something you can afford and still make money on top of that. And then you know, you can also work out some kind of deal where maybe they stay involved in the business. You know, if you can learn from them, like, hey, I want to keep you around for 6 months while I, you know, figure it out, help me out. But yeah, seller financing also, especially with these interest rates.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah. That's one thing. And what are some mistakes that you made along the way to you, whether it's in the military, whether it's personal, financial, what were some of the mistakes that you made coming up to this point that kind of like evolved you?
yeah, I think mistakes. I don't think I've made like, you know, where it's like, oh, I bought a property when I shouldn't have or something like that like lost money. I've been fortunate. I haven't lost money on a real estate deal yet, but I think one mistake is um not going. I think sometimes I wish I had gone bigger earlier. You know, I think we are capable of a lot more than we think we are. And I think if we only are doing things that are comfortable, then we're not really growing, and we're capable of doing a lot more than that. So I think I would just encourage people to set your goals bigger than you think, because you can
Nice.
achieve a lot more than you think you can. And I think people, what is it? People um overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year and underestimate what they can accomplish in 10 years. So I also encourage folks to don't just think about what you're going to do in the next few months, year, like set big goals for down the road. You can accomplish a lot in 5 to 10 years. So make
Okay.
big goals and surround yourself with people that'll support you to get those goals.
And to get to that point, what are some things that you think the young person, the entrepreneur should do to pay dividends for their future?
I think it goes back to the mastermind group. Like you have to surround yourself with the right people. If you're only surrounded by people that are, you know, doubting you, and people that have limiting beliefs, and people that are not entrepreneurs, and people that just, oh, why don't you just stick with your safe W-2 job? Like, why are you trying to be an entrepreneur? Why are you trying to invest in real estate? If everyone around you is saying that, but there's a part of you that's like, I need to do this. I need to be a real estate investor. I need to be an entrepreneur. Then you're surrounded by the wrong people. You need to get, they can still be your friends and family, but you need to get around some different people, because there are a lot of people out there that are entrepreneur, business, real estate minded. It's a different mindset. It's not the employee mindset that most Americans have, but you have to surround yourself with a different, you have to get in a different room.
Yeah. And you're speaking a lot about having these negative vampires in your life, Doug. So what did you do to like combat that? Like I like it is like close family members, and I have those close family members that are actually vampires too. So what did you do to be like, you know what, I'm not gonna cut you off, but I'm gonna be in this group, and they're still in your area. So how would you kind of like push them out a little bit? What are some things that you can do with those negative people?
I'm fortunate that most people that I keep in my, you know, most people that I keep in my circle are supportive. If there was ever someone, a friend or family member that was like, what are you doing that for? You can't do that. I'd be like, I'm not, we're not going to be hanging out as much anymore. You know, because, you know, I think you should be supportive of people, you know, right? So why would someone doubt that? So, but I mean, you just have to spend less time with them. I mean, I don't know. I haven't personally encountered that, but just, you know, compartmentalize it. Like, okay, these people, I'm not going to take investing advice or business advice from these people because they've never done it. So I'm,
Yeah.
you know, it's okay. These are great for hanging out on the weekends and going and hanging out and watching the game or whatever, but they're not. I'm not going to take. I'm only going to take some certain life advice from them, not business, entrepreneurship, whatever, because they're, you know, they have their limiting beliefs, and they're not reading books in their spare time, most likely. So
Of course. And uh for like yourself, what do you think that uh I guess if I took everything away from you, right? Your military career, your real estate, start you from day one, right? Day zero, right? Took everything from you. What would you do differently? How would you start off from scratch?
um, I'd probably enlist in the military. I mean,
Mm,
they give you they give you everything you need, right? You get 3 square meals and you get a place to live, and you can go to college for free. And, especially starting from the beginning, 18-year-old. I mean, it's military training is, what is it? Military training is like a river. Just jump in and it'll take you where you need to be. I like that one,
I
but
like that. That's a good analogy.
yeah. So, it's just, hey, do what they tell you to do, and work hard and you'll be successful. So yeah, that's probably what I do. And then just kind of grow from there.
Okay. And now we can move on to the ending questions here, Doug. So if you can go back in time and ask or tell your younger self something, what would it be? 18 years old, Doug.
I would definitely tell my younger self to buy real estate earlier. you know, I think if you talk to any real estate investor, they just wish they had bought more real estate sooner, so and held on to it. Thankfully, we've sold 2 flips, but for the most part, we've kept most of the real estate we have. So that's another regret from more experienced real estate investors, is they wish they hadn't sold when they did sell. So I think if I could go back, I'd just buy more real estate.
Nice. Okay. And what question would you like to ask your future self? Let's say Doug 20 years later.
I don't know. I don't want to spoil the surprise. I don't think I'd have a question. No, I wouldn't want to know. I like the unknown. I
Okay.
don't want to ruin the surprise,
So your past self just looks back on this podcast like, oh, you don't have any questions for me. Okay.
They're like, I could have given you the keys to the kingdom or riches, or no, I don't. No, I'd rather not know. Yeah.
And what do you think the secret sauce is into becoming very successful?
Having a clearly defined why. Because it's going to be frustrating. There's going to be a lot more reasons to quit than to continue on. And if you have a clear why, then I think you're more likely to stick with it long term.
Okay, nice. And we have Devin here with a question. Devin, go ahead.
So on this entrepreneur journey, I've always thought, how much money is enough? When do you take the time to say, all right, I've worked hard enough, I made my millions? Is there a number that you want to stop at, or is it just, this is a lifestyle, I love working, I can't see myself on the beach every single day retired? Is there a set number? Do you have a set number?
No.
Or is this it?
No, I really enjoy, so I will do 20 years. So I've got six and change until I hit 20. And then the goal for me is to have enough passive income from real estate and business so that by the time I retire from the Navy, neither me nor my wife has to work anymore. We still will work, because I think it's, if 43, I can't just sit on the beach for the rest of my life, right? Like that's like, right. I need to have a sense of purpose. I need to have a sense of fulfillment. And for me, that is helping other military members in real estate. And so that's what I do now. That's why I started, the Instagram channel and, my website, Honor and Equity. And so I foresee myself, once I get to that point of financial freedom, just spending my time doing more real estate, likely with other military members. I just like it. I enjoy buying properties and closing deals and all that. Like, it's fun, and working with people that you know and that you like and doing real estate with them. Like, that's fun. Like, that's not even work, right? But I would do it. I'll be doing it on my own terms, on my own time, as much or as little as I want to, and I'll schedule it where I can, have time. Like, I want to take my son to and from school every day, or whatever it is. It'll be on my terms, not on some company's terms, not on some corporation. And so it's being able to do stuff on my own terms. But yeah, I don't, I who knows what my purpose will be in 6 years, 10 years, like, who knows? But I think, we as humans have to have a sense of purpose. Otherwise we're, I mean, maybe it's philanthropy, maybe it's, who knows, but no one can sit on a beach. They can do it for a few months and then they get depressed.
Right. And they get old. Yeah. I understand.
Yeah.
You can't be drinking margaritas all day.
All day, every day.
It's fun for a while, but
yeah.
All right. And Doug, what quote do you live by? Do you have like a favorite quote that you always like to say?
Favorite quote. There's a good one. I don't know if it's my favorite, but it came up in a conversation a few days ago. And what is it? People are like buttons on an elevator. Some of them take you higher in life, and some of them take you lower. So you got to make sure you're picking the right people to be around.
Oh, I like
so.
that.
Yeah. And, I think there's a theme that you asked me a question. I always go back to people. Because real estate and business, it's all about people. You can't do it alone. And it's about having the right team, having the right people, and surrounding yourself with the right people. And when I'm vetting a real estate deal or whatever, it's so much more about the people who is on it. Like what are the values of these people? Because when the shit hits the fan, what's their character? That's so much more important than the numbers in a deal. So that's why you hear me always go back to the people. I'm very much a who, not how type of guy. So.
No, I love it. I love it. I love the people. I love the network thing because again, even if I don't have anything in return or like, I guess like in set material value, I still have the people that either I'm helping out or they help me out. And it's like having a bigger connection. And I think what got me into like the whole networking part was actually like, so it was like a statistic, like there's going to be 250 people, like the average is 250 people is going to show up to your wedding. The average is 250 people are going to show up to your funeral. And that's average, right? And a lot of people, they're kind of like flabbergasted that, oh, wait, well, I don't know 250 people. I probably know like 30. I'm like, see, that's a problem right there. If the average is 250, there's something like, there's something whether it kind of clicked my head where it's like, okay, I got to start connecting with more and more people because I want to impact a lot more people in a positive sense, right? Because I have something to give. And if I can help them, whether it's organizing their files or organizing their business, right? Giving them a business plan, like this can work out. I'm like, oh my God, Haven, thank you. Where I'm like, oh, no problem, right? Hopefully you remember, right? Pay it forward to somebody else. It doesn't have to be me. As much as I like to make my own charity for myself, but I don't need it. I'll figure it out. And from that, it kind of opened my mind, like, wait a minute, your network is your net worth because if you can connect with somebody, like let's say you connected with somebody and they connected you to somebody else and that person connected you with someone like Donald Trump, right? Who's like has all like the knowledge of like not all the knowledge, but like hey, how did he get up to become the president, right? What did he have to do, or what was his investments into? Like, I think someone told me about why he invests in the graveyards or why he does this, right? I'm like, okay, that's interesting, right? Because I never knew that. So me being in that scenario, that group of like that field environment, I'm like, okay, cool. That helps me out because now I'm a more knowledgeable person. And whenever there's someone else that comes into my life, I can give them that knowledge and they can be set apart. Because at the end of the day, we're all human beings, right? So we can all really be replaced. I think the military taught me that. Like, no matter what, you will be replaced. I'm like, okay,
sure.
Cool. And in the grand scheme of things, let me see what I can do, right? Instead of having someone reinvent the wheel over and over and over again, why don't I just give them the knowledge that I already obtained living my life to somebody else? And then they don't have to reinvent the wheel and they can find the cure for cancer or find like the new invention to basically take us to a better future for society. I'm like, oh, I did my part, right? Even if like I think the military, any job says like I think like a janitor and that sent like the astronaut that was sent to the moon first, Neil Armstrong, or like the whole NASA, right? The astronaut was like, or like the janitor was like, hey, I put the man up in the moon, right? Even though I didn't do the whole technical stuff, I mopped the floors. I made sure it was a clean environment whenever people walked in. He even like it's the whole different symbolism for like work ethic and all that. But at the end of the day, like he put value into somebody going up to the moon, right? So if it's just me being a barista, giving a cup of coffee to somebody, saying, "Hey, have a nice day," when they're depressed and all that, and they're like, "You know what? I will have a nice day. Actually, thank you." And like, you know, I'm gonna get to work, right? I want to find the next cure, the next penicillin, the next whatever, right? And I'm like, okay, cool. And yeah, I think a lot of people they will like to take the credit of having that, but being that person, that giver person, you're like, you know what? Let them have the credit. But like in my mind, I'm like, I'm happy for them, right? That they got that far. Because
well, that's what good leaders do, and in and out of the military is, when a subordinate makes a mistake, they don't say, oh, that was, Sergeant so and so. It's like, oh no, that's on me. But when a subordinate does something fantastic, they're, they give credit to the subordinate. They don't say, oh, that was me, so
Yeah.
it's,
Those are good leaders.
yeah.
You take extreme ownership for the bad parts, and then you take whenever someone else gets like the best, you're like, you know what, that's what they did.
Yeah.
They take all the credit. Jaden here, he has a question. Go ahead, Jaden. You're
Oh,
muted.
you're on mute.
Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So basically, like, I want to know who is your like mentor, like, and how did you like? What made you get started becoming a real estate investor?
I would say I don't have a single mentor. I definitely have a lot of people within the 2 mastermind groups that I'm in that I get advice from regularly. And so I lean on a lot of people and a lot of people's advice in that mentor capacity. But as far as getting me started, I mentioned the gentleman named Stu Grazier. He's a fellow Navy guy. He just retired like last year. But he is someone who I listened to that, one of the first real estate podcasts I listened to. And he and I are both in naval aviation as well. So we had that common link. And I reached out to him and he answered a lot of my questions. And he was like, hey, we have this property coming up. It's a cash flowing real estate property in Milwaukee. And so that's how I got started in, buying out of state real estate was through him. And he and I have stayed in touch throughout the years. We were in a mastermind group together, and I'm invested with him in a mobile home park syndication as well. So I would say he's probably a mentor that got me started for sure. And we stay in touch. But as far as regularly, I don't have a single mentor that I like meet up with weekly or monthly, like an individual person, but I do have people in my tribes, the like 2 mastermind groups that I'm in, where I'm like, I know I have a lot of people. If I like, hell, I got a question about a certain thing, I can like get on the phone with those people and like, get some mentorship from them, so yeah. I don't know that answers your question, but I have like, I guess, multiple mentors, I guess. So
I also believe in that too. You're going to have a multiple mentors, because it's all about niching down, right? I know this guy named Mike, and he's like very, very, very nerdy into like the whole network space, like internet and all that stuff. I'm like, he doesn't know anything else, but he knows that. And I'm like, okay, cool. I know he's really good at that part, right? He's going to be my mentor for that. Or like, I need a mentor for, let's say storage units, right? Who's really good at storage units? That person. Okay. You're going to have so many people in your lives. You're not just going to, it's not like those, like, what is it? A Karate Kid, where you're going to have one guy teach you everything, right? It's like wax on, wax off. It's not like that. It's not like that. Yeah. Mr. Miyagi. Yeah. It's not like that. It's going to be, you're going to have a bunch of people in your life, and then they're going to affect you in a way. And you're going to be like a giant with them. And then someone else going to come underneath you. You're going to be like, you know what? I was in your same exact shoes. Let me help you out. Right. Because in the future, 40 years old, you're going to have someone 20 or 26 come up to you like, hey, I want to learn about whatever you're doing. And they're like, you know what? Yeah. And I think niches come in place. So if you're really good at something, whether it's real estate, whether it's military, or both, right? I think you got multiple niches, but you're really good at a lot of things because you have a lot of time in your hand. People will come at you for different things. People come up for like internet stuff. Some people come up from real estate stuff. Some people just come up for me for military stuff. There's a bunch of stuff that people come up to you. So either way, you're helping everybody out, and you're being a master for all, I guess, a mentor for all.
Yeah, and that's an important thing, is like as you grow, make sure you pass it down as well to other people, which is something that's really important to me. That's one of my big goals for 2022. A goal that I hit was I wanted to spend I spend 52 hours, well, minimum of 52 hours in the year giving free mentoring to military folks about real estate. So, and I hit that goal. I exceeded it by a little bit, and I have the same goal for 2023 as well. So I just like, I like chatting. It checks the goal. I love chatting real estate with people, and I love helping military folks along their journey, and it's good for them. And then it helps me because I count that as my like contribution, throughout the year to other people. So,
oh yeah. And whenever you're giving back, it's like, it's just, you don't expect any return, and you really don't. But for some odd reason, it always comes back in like good karma. It's like, you helped me out so much. Here, this is what I did. I opened up a charity in your name. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Right. But you didn't expect it.
if I could sum it up, advice in like one sentence, it would be surround yourself with people that have already done what you're trying to do, and then find ways to provide value to them without expecting anything in return. So surround yourself with people that have already done or are already doing what you want to do, and find a way, figure out what they need and provide value to them without expecting anything in return.
Of course, you said it right, Doug. Jaden, you have another question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have one more question. Doug, what is your approach on risk taking?
I would say I'm riskier than I accept more risk than the average person.
There you go.
But I think part of that is because my wife and I are both active duty military, and that is the job security it's better job security than the average W-2. So my theory is that allows me to be maybe a little riskier, and not riskier, but I'm willing to accept more risk in my investing ventures on the side, because it's not like the military can go, hey man, you got 2 weeks to clean out your desk and you're done. Like it's a more secure job than most jobs. So I think that gives me some wiggle room to, because if I had a W-2 where I could lose my job at any moment, then I would be, I need to like have more reserves saved up, in case I unemployed for a long period of time. But I don't really have that. That's not really a problem necessarily. So I think it allows me to be a little riskier on my investing side. And I think we are all, at least based on everyone I've seen on this call, we're on the younger side. So we have such a long time horizon. The average life expectancy is like upper 70s. And by the time we're older, it's probably going to be 80, 90 plus. So, I mean, we have time to correct from mistakes, and also real estate is very forgiving in the long term. So that's my take, at least.
That is true. For real estate is forgiving for the long term.
Yeah.
And Doug, you recommended 2 books before. Is there any other books that you recommend for people that, whether it's life, real estate, money, anything?
So I actually have this book right next to my desk. It's called The Gap in the Gain
By Dan Sullivan.
Yeah, I reread it for the second time. I read it twice in 2022. Excellent book. Traction is a great book. That's the one I mentioned earlier. Real estate focused books. I mean, there's so many out there if you want multifamily or whatever, but 2 that got me started, both were by David Green. So Long Distance Real Estate Investing, and then the Burr book Buy, Rehab, Rent, Refinance, Repeat. Both of those were hugely impactful for me. And another good one was, if you like, syndication type stuff, then Joe Fairless's Best Ever Apartment Syndication book was really good.
That's a good book.
Yeah. And then a very underrated business book is called The Road Less Stupid by Cunningham is his last name.
The Road to Less Stupid.
The Road Less Stupid. It's really good.
Okay, yeah, the Road Less Stupid, advice from the chairman of the board by Keith Cunningham. Yep. Okay, nice. I'll check that book out as well.
That one's really good.
Yeah, and let's say your son, right, is at your age right now. What would you like to tell him?
Nice job.
Nice job.
I'm proud of you. Yeah.
There you go. And finally, how can people reach out to you, and what value can they give back to you?
I think the easiest way is our Instagram at Honor and Equity. And then we also have a website. It's honorandequity.com. I'll drop it in the chat here, but, and then provide value to me, probably just, any real estate, any folks who are in the military that are interested in doing more real estate or learning more about real estate, just feel free to reach out, follow our page. We document our journey, all the stuff we're working on. And I like connecting with folks and chatting about real estate in general. So give us a follow on Instagram, check out our website, and just interact with us.
Nice. And again, thank you for coming on, Doug. You're an amazing guest.
Thanks.